we going?
We're going.
This is Elena Harder from JoyGasm. So I brought her in to give us another perspective on pleasure, particularly what to do if you don't really feel like pleasure. And I'm curious about Elena's pleasure routine. So we're on a 21 days of pleasure mission, and sometimes that's not always easy, you know? It's like you get started with good go, and then it kind of peters off and life gets in the way. So curious to know, what would you do if you were kind of embarking on this pleasure mission and you didn't actually feel like masturbating or sex, or what would you do to like either bring that pleasurable energy back into your life, or somehow use the intention to find pleasure? What would be your access?
Let me just sit with that for a second. Not be having ants crawl on me, that's for sure. That's a good point. We've got pain coming in, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes when you're embarking on this place of looking for more pleasure in your life, there's this strange thing that happens, is that pain comes up, or ambivalence comes up, or nothingness comes up, and you're like, I was going full steam ahead and now I've hit this plateau. And I think the biggest thing to realize about the plateau is that it's a plateau. Doesn't mean you're done, doesn't mean it's dead, doesn't mean you've like failed in some way, but it is a really big opportunity to see where you need more healing, what area of you needs more love, right? So if you are, it's day 7 and you're like, not happening today, no way. It's like, there's a couple things you could do. One, you could take pleasure in the intensity of your no, right? You can be like, that's right, I don't feel like it, and I'm not going to, and I feel really good about not doing it.
Yeah, so go fully into the no.
Go fully
and be
into
like, yeah!
And be like, no!
I
don't want to! Right? A lot of the times when we're in a space of exploring pleasure, and we're in a space
Start that sentence again.
a lot of the times when we're in the space of exploring pleasure, we get stuck. We get stuck in, I already said that. Okay.
So where were you going to go when you were talking about, like, well, it's true though, we do get stuck, and yeah. So what else? So you're like, okay, go with the no.
Okay, so go.
What else?
Right. So go with the no. It's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about really going with the no, is like there's only so much no in you, or there's only so much rage or so much anger, and when you fully express it, you let out the energy, and then pleasure rushes in, right? Like you let out that space, and then there's a gap, and it's like, well, now what? So with that gap, like now there's space. So it's like, and often when you're expressing like intense emotion like that, there's space after that intense emotion, and you can fill it with whatever you want. You can fill it with attention. You can fill it with pleasure.
Yeah.
And
what about just laziness? Like, what about that feeling of, like you said at the beginning, like ambivalence?
I find under ambivalence there's always pain. There's always pain under ambivalence. You'd be like, I don't care, and it's like, I don't care means you care a lot, and you're not willing to feel how much you care because it hurts too much.
Do you think there's some avoidance?
It's always avoidance. Because there's like content happiness where you're like, life is pretty good.
What about busyness? You're a mum.
So busyness, I combat busyness with 2-minute intentions. It's like, for 2 minutes, I'm going to do this.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. 1 minute if you really don't have any time, but
like,
2 minutes.
I think that's really important. It's like, we don't have to make it a big production all the time, you know? Like, sometimes that's really good, but then let's just take the pressure off. It's really about awareness and intention, right? So if you can even bring 2 minutes a day to like, feel good in my body, then that's something.
Yeah, and like one of the things I love to do is like, you sit there and play with your wrists. Wrists are really powerful and really tender spots, right? If somebody like nibble on your wrist, it feels really good.
Really?
See? I love you. You're always in for like jumping in and trying whatever it is I've got to say. Yeah, so you can sit there and like, and be like, ooh, I'm going to touch my wrist, and when I touch it, ooh, it's going to feel nice. It's like, no, not yet, and do that for like 1 minute. And that's a pleasure challenge. It's like exploring like the subtleties of pleasure. Maybe you don't feel like, going through the whole process and masturbating and like, getting to orgasm, but it's not about getting to orgasm. The pleasure challenge is about experiencing pleasure in your life.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, it's like, take a little bit more pleasure in whatever
Yeah.
moment. And doing that early in the day, like doing a practice like with the wrist, or
Yeah.
where you tune into the natural like pleasure that's already happening in your body. Because it's not that we have to create pleasure, it's already happening. We can
Yeah.
amplify it, we can like build it up, but
Well, we have to put our attention on it.
you have to put your attention on it.
It's like looking for where pleasure is existing.
Yeah.
You know, I like stroking my forearm.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Yeah. It's just like
And so then I guess my last question is, we almost touched on it before. You were talking about like that alchemy of moving from like the fully no, or the rage, or the, you know, the grief, or the sadness, or just the, you know, depression is a big one, I think, just feeling low. And I know when I feel low, like the last thing it's like this rebel in me doesn't want to feel pleasure. So because we're on this challenge, the interesting practice is, okay, we actually have set an intention to, you know, move to have that alchemical process to move into pleasure somehow. So I got before that you can move into a spaciousness. And I love, you know, Abraham Hicks, they'll say, just move to contentment first. And then once you've got contentment, then see if you can move to like a little bit, you know, you go up the sliding scale. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Oh. Right?
Yeah.
Like move up the scale with
So
it.
the JoyGasm process, that's pretty much particularly for this, isn't it?
Yeah, so the JoyGasm process is this place of moving from a space of intense negativity to a space of intense pleasure. And the theory behind it is basically, if you're feeling an intense emotion, there's a lot of energy going on there. There's a lot of intensity. And so you can switch the brain pathways that you have that are firing in intensity to be pleasure pathways, and to start to create that space where it's like I stubbed my toe the other day and it didn't hurt. It didn't. I want to say it. I was gonna say it hurt, but it actually didn't, because as soon as I stubbed my toe, because I trained myself this way, I went straight into pleasure, and it was like an orgasmic toe stub. I'm serious.
Man,
Right?
I want to see that.
But it's like
do you not even just go, fuck? Do you swear? You're like, ah, for a minute?
I was like, oh, cool, an opportunity, because it's so intense. It's like you can feel.
I believe you. I believe
You only
you.
sort of believe me, but you know
Well-
what? Skepticism's the perfect next step.
Exactly. I don't. It's like everything. You have to experience it,
Until you
right? You get it.
experience
But it's nice to set that. So, you know, use the intensity, and like feel it so much that it can become.
Yeah. So it's like I'm going along in my life, everything's okay. Something happens that like makes me feel like shit. And most people will be like, "Oh, it feels a little bit like shit," and then they'll numb out and they'll just like hang out, you know, on the same plane. And instead, it's like, okay, so you're feeling okay, and then something shit happens. Is like take that shit to the very bottom. Sorry, my language.
Don't worry. I swear too.
Take it to the very bottom. And then when you hit bottom, it's like you're at the bottom. You can't go any further.
Yeah.
And then you come back to presence, and then once you hit presence, it's like, all right, I'm alive. Cool. Wow. God, life's beautiful. And then you go right back up, and it's like, and it creates this like pleasure.
It's a
response.
real spiritual practice. So we can find more about JoyGasm at, what's your website?
JoyGasm.me.
Yeah.
JoyGasm.
Yeah. And also, we made a video, and I'll put it in the feed, or I'll email it to you, about JoyGasm, and you can watch me going through the JoyGasm process, and you can do it with us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Elena.
Yeah, you're
Do you have any
welcome.
final thoughts?
I did, but I can't remember what they are now.
Okay, that's okay.
Hold on. Let's because we can. Do you have any final thoughts? Because there was something, and I can't remember what it is now. But we'll just like I can pop that piece out in the middle,
Yeah.
and then I can have a final thought.
But
But what was it? It was like, be gentle with yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. The final thought is just like, be gentle with yourself. You're on a pleasure challenge. You're already pushing the edge. It's the new year. Everybody's got resolutions. Like, be gentle with yourself, and whatever a tiny moment of pleasure is, whatever that may be, let that be enough.
Yeah.
For that day. You know, you want to take it to the fullest and take it to the thing, but there might be days where you're like, I don't have the energy for that, and that's fine. And you can be gentle with yourself in that moment, and don't let it stop you, right? You set an intention at the beginning. You said, I'm gonna do this, and don't let those moments of discouragement stop you, because on the other side of all of this, all of the moments where you're challenged, is so much more pleasure waiting for you to unfold.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that you're doing this with people, because Pleasure challenges are so transformative.
Yeah.
They're so amazing. It's like one of the most difficult things to do, but it's so rewarding.
Isn't it funny how hard it is?
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right, cool.
Okay.